Okay, moving on to where we stopped earlier, right? We are at question 2, part D. This is the open-ended question for this paper, the first option, right? So if you look at this very carefully, this is a unique occurrence, a O-level question, open-ended question where they actually lock you into two factors. Okay, this is not usual. I want to repeat, this is actually not very usual, but may work for you, may, yeah, if you prefer this type of a question. Okay, so the question actually talks about development of tourist attractions, okay, as one key factor here, having a greater influence on the growth of global tourism than improvements in transport. So what are the factors that you are bound to describe? You need to explain the first given factor, development of tourist attractions, okay, attractions itself, and then the contrast will be improvements in transportation. So there's actually no flexibility at all. If you choose to attempt this question, you must talk about these two factors, okay? And because it's a two-factor analysis, you do need to talk a little bit more about them, including what are some of the limitations if you are trying to do either of these as a means of exerting influence on global tourism, okay, growth of global tourism. So in the first paragraph that I would be looking out for, okay, should be dealing with the given factor here, in terms of tourist attractions. Okay, you should be dealing with examples of what some of these attractions may be, okay, giving a description of what attraction is, why is it that certain locations develop attractions, okay. You in your explanation paragraph, you should also be mentioning influence of these attractions. What scale of influence are you looking at? Does it limit itself to regional travelers, or is it actually strong enough an attraction that people will fly across the world to visit your attraction? Okay, are there such examples? Okay, is there a theme park? Is there a particular attraction that you would travel half the world around to visit, right? If there was nothing else in the country, would you travel there because of this attraction? Because that is a very clear sign that it has a very strong influence on growth of global tourism. Okay, are there places that actually there weren't that many tourists, but after they built this attraction at that particular location, it gave a very strong boost to the tourism industry? Okay, then is there any issues with developing attractions? Then that is your limitation to this. What are some problems with trying to develop attractions? Is it a cost issue? Does attractions do they normally have a cost factor linked to it? Is it got to do with longevity, sustainability of the attraction, right? So you do need to explore this issue component, this limitation component for your two paragraphs in this open-ended question, because you only have two paragraphs. Now then your contrast factor will have to be in terms of transportation. So what do you mean by improving your transportation? Is it just making it faster? Okay, or do you need to satisfy all three criteria of comfort, cost, as well as speed? Okay, do you have examples of improvement in transport leading to a rise in global tourism? Right? How has in your textbook we talk about jet planes. How has jet planes actually, if you want to use jet planes, how has it improved connectivity of the world? And because of improved connectivity, because of lower costs, as a result, global tourism has increased, right? Are you able to show that? Okay, then is there any issue with improvement in transportation? What does it mean when we are looking at transportation improvement? How can we go ahead and then get this as a factor paragraph to make a clear stand, right? Then assessment is where you need to take your stand. Focus on scale of impact. Which one is a bigger factor for global tourism? Okay. You can also look at limitations, certain things that may work against having these factor work for you, and as a result, I give an example here. Will you travel to an attraction if you had to take 40 hours of bus, right? So if you want to work in this way and you want to work against the concept that attraction is improvement, is more attractive, has a greater influence, right? This is something that you can think about. Okay, if you didn't have the improvement in transportation, would you, number one, be able to access these attractions? Number two, will they still be as attractive for you? Okay, so open-ended question. This one, once again, very unique. It's a two-factor one. So if you chose to do this particular question in 2020, um this is the lock-in. Now, no good or no bad about this. Or rather, it balances out. Depends on what you have actually been more prepared for. So when you're looking at the open-ended question for the options area, right? Largely, I will pick the one that I'm more prepared for. Okay, whether it's a 2-factor or 3-factor, that doesn't count into my consideration. It's the factors that I'm prepared for. Because if you're prepared for all 3 factors, your answer will be more complete. Okay. Now moving on to the next one. Okay, next one, question 3, your second option for section B. Right, they show you a stimulus photograph B, a person who is feeding fish. Okay, she's not fishing. I can confidently say that it's a her, it's a she, because if you look very carefully, she's wearing a tudong. Okay, so what is this contraption that she's standing on actually? Right, if you can identify that this is probably a floating fishing platform or kelong, that is fine. If not, the ability to identify that this is a fishery, okay, or fish farm is important. Okay, you cannot say that she's fishing, she's not fishing. Okay, what is she actually doing? She's actually feeding the fish that is kept inside the nets in the coastal areas. Okay, so this is a floating fish farm, making use of the natural seawater in this area. So why is it ideal to have this at the coast? Because if you don't have this at the coast, you do this inland, what else do you need to do? Okay, if you're going to build a building to put this in, or you're going to have a farm area to build a fish farm like this, at the very least, the upfront cost will be higher because there will be need to create those cells or those reservoirs for you to keep the fish in. So that's important. Okay, so describing the activities here and how being near the coast actually helps these farmers, okay, these fish farmers, lower their costs and makes it overall a better place to create a fish farm like this. Okay. Right, the next question here is got to do with the weight of fish caught at sea and harvested by aquaculture in Penang for the 10 years between 2006 to 2016. They want you to compare the weight of fish caught at sea with the harvested fish by aquaculture in Penang between these 10 years. So first thing is overall trend, right? When we're doing description question of data, you do need to look for an overall trend. You do, however, have 2 trends to look for. 2 types: your fish caught at sea, which is the dark bar, and then the transparent bar or the white bar, which will be the fish harvested by aquaculture. So the general trend here is, do they follow actually the same general pattern, right? When there's a spike in one, do you see a corresponding spike in the other? If that is the case, please state so. If that is not the case, please state so as well. That is your basis for the general trend. So I give you an example. You look at 2011, right? 2011, if you look at the fish caught at sea, there was a spike, okay, a sudden jump in the amount of fish caught at sea. It jumped up to about 65,000 metric tons. But if you look at up from 45 in 2010, which is an increase of 20,000 metric tons, quite significant. If you look at the corresponding years, the fish harvested by aquaculture, there's actually not a significant difference. There's a very slight increase only. So these are things that I will highlight as the overall trend. Okay, so if you look carefully, the harvested aquaculture fish harvest has been increasing at a more steady pace, peaking in 2014. For the fish caught at sea, it's been generally an upward trend starting from 2006 to 2016, but it's been more erratic with some ups and downs, more discernible rises and falls. Okay, however, you do need to note in 2016, the fish harvest quantity actually had a very significant drop. Okay, from close to 60,000 metric tons, it dropped to 30, dropped by almost half. So that's very significant, and that must come out. Okay, which years for each of these did they have the largest harvest? What was the corresponding harvest for the other mode in that year? So if you look at the fish caught at sea, the highest harvest was 2011. In comparison, actually they harvested close to 40,000+ metric tons more fish. Okay, now in the exam itself, this will be drawn to scale, so you can actually use a ruler and measure the actual bar. You should be able to know exact numbers and be able to process the exact difference. Okay, so processing of the data is important. Recording your largest harvest for each of these, overall trend. This is how you would need to put things down to achieve your 4 full marks. Okay, so I highlight the key points here. Okay, so you look at this, it's actually going up, then coming down. But for the other one, it's going up, flattening, going up, coming down. It's erratic. Okay, so your fish caught at sea is erratic. Fish harvest by aquaculture is a more regular increase over the years. Part C focuses on mangroves, so it's still on coast. Right, they want to explain how mangroves are important to people in some coastal areas of Southeast Asia. So it is importance of mangrove, okay, human users of mangrove, coastal areas, and then there's a funny thing here about Southeast Asia. Now, what are the value of mangroves? Okay, in your syllabus itself, you are looking at things like it being a habitat for marine creatures, it being able to stabilize shorelines by trapping sediments. Okay, so you protect your coast. It protects your coast by absorbing force of storms as well. Now, why is this third one important? Because this is linked to your next part of your explanation, Southeast Asia. Okay, so why Southeast Asia? Why specifically here? Is the climate here more ideal for mangroves? Do you have more mangroves found in Southeast Asia as compared to the rest of the world? Right? When you talk about distribution, when we learn about distribution, you know that this is actually true. Then protection from climatic and tectonic hazards. Southeast Asia has been, we are in the belt where we do tend to get tropical cyclones. So that is another reason why this is very important or more important or are important to people who live in coastal areas, because they are protected from all these these climatic hazards as well as tsunamis, tectonic hazards by the mangroves. Okay, so if you are looking for things to talk about, so these are your climatic and then these are your tsunamis. So even though it's on coast, right, you need to bring in some of your information from your plate tech as well as some of the information that you already know about tropical cyclones, or just general information of what coastal areas can experience in terms of these hazards. Okay. Question D. They give you a stimulus, a part of France. Okay. They ask you to explain how hard engineering may be used to reduce coastal erosion. So the focus is on hard engineering methods here. So what are the hard engineering that you can see in this picture? Okay, I'm circling out first and foremost 1, 2. Okay, 1 and 2. Now this thing here, right, that I am shading is not a tetrapod. Very important. This is not a tetrapod. This is also not a breakwater. It is actually just gravel and rocks that are put in front of the seawall to function like a tetrapod. So you cannot call them tetrapods. So this is actually not within your syllabus itself, right? Not within the one of the coastal protection hard engineering methods that you learn. It is also not a gabion because you do not see the metal wire mesh, right? So what are the two that you can talk about? You can only talk about the groin as well as the seawall. Okay, how these are used, what do they protect? Okay, do they perform the same role? They don't. We all know that the groins actually protect the coast from beach sediment transportation or movement of sediment, whilst your seawall is a direct protection against the erosion of the coast, okay, by the swash and backwash. So the thing to highlight here is there's a distractor, the rocks by the seawall in front, in the foreground of the picture, that is a distractor. Please note, this is not gabion, this is also not tetrapods. Finally, the second LR, second open-ended question, is on laws and regulations are more suitable way to manage coastal areas than soft engineering. So you're contrasting laws against soft engineering types. So 3-factor, more sustainable, but is two subtopics or two categories of action that you can take. So laws, what are some of these laws and regulations you can do? You can limit your damaging activities. For example, you can limit the amount of beach development, okay, degradation of conversion of beachfront into industries, into aquaculture space. Okay, you can protect your coastal resources, right? Instill laws like this, and also you can restrict development in areas prone to natural hazards like flooding, storm surge. Okay, so this is like your land use regulation. Soft engineering, of course, you have your beach nourishment, vegetation planting, stabilizing your dunes, and encouraging coral growth. Now, one or two from each side, in total making 3. Okay, 3-factor. Please remember, this is a 3-factor analysis. Which one do you want to do? Two is completely up to you. So at the moment in time, if you're doing this paper, it depends on what examples you remember. If you remember more examples for soft engineering, then go ahead and do two soft engineering. Because it's not a quantity game when you're doing assessment, it is an impact game. So if you are looking at laws and regulations versus soft engineering, what are some of the ways you can assess this? Think of it from a sustainable standpoint. Which one would be easier to implement, which one will cost less in the long term, which one will be more effective. Okay, either one of these methods in terms of sustainability, long term impact of the laws and regulations versus soft engineering will make it easier for you to make a stand at the end. Right, so three factor analysis, take the stand at the end, do the assessment based on sustainability, long term sustainability. That should put you in good ground for a L26 to L3 answer. Okay, and with that, we've finished the 2020 paper 1. So the next session I see you, we will look at 2020 paper 2. Now I've also put this set of slides up in Teams, so you have access to this as well. Okay, so in the interim, right, what you can do is you can go ahead and attempt this paper, right? Time yourself, attempt the paper, and with that, you should have a piece of work that you can submit to me, right? This is not compulsory, but this is a useful recent paper, so it's useful as a prelim practice. Okay, alternatively, if you want to try the 2020 CGS paper that was issued to you today, same thing, right? You try the components you're not very sure of, you send it to me for marking, or you try the open-ended question, right? That is essential. I think we should all try to do as many open-ended questions as practice before the prelims and the actual O-levels exam itself. So once you get it done, send it to me. I will get the soft copy of the answer to you as soon as it's marked. Okay, hard copies, I need to meet you to pass it to you, so the soft copy will definitely go to you first. So once you send it to me, I will get it marked and I will send you the soft copy as soon as physically possible. All right, so that's it. I will see you the next session. Thank you.